It's a lot of 3 stars in Jonathan Smith's 2025 class at Michigan State. Not all too concerned about that. We will explain why with the one, the only Chief of Propaganda. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But hey, this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for kicking off your week with us here at Locked On Spartans. Your team in green and white 3 days a week in June and July. But hey, once August comes around, that's right. Back to full season programming 5 days a week. You ever want to reach out to us, scream at us, ask a question, lockedonspartans@gmail.com is the place to find us. We have the one, the only, one of my great friends of the program, one of my great friends in real life. It is Odell Brentham Jr., more affectionately known as MSU Chief of Propaganda. Chief, how we doing, man? We doing okay in this offseason?
I'm having more fun this offseason than I've had in a long time. I feel rejuvenated. We got a full, nothing in the Michigan State realm. We've kind of had a year off. Nothing's happened in the past 12 months that would have taken any energy from us. So,
No.
yeah, it's an exciting time, and I'm fired up for the fall here.
It's been a sleepy calendar. I can't think of a single thing that would, get us irked, irate, any word that starts with the letter I, really. So, no, it's been fine. It's been chill, just like this offseason. Look, we're going to get into plenty of mailbag questions. We got some fun ones like, hey, what are we going to do with CMU's money if they ever pay us back from the charade that they pulled last fall? But we're going to start with the recruiting question, Chief of Propaganda. And here we go. This is from Jay, and plenty of people wrote in questions that are very similar to Jay's questions here pertaining to recruiting and how it's been going so far for the 2025 class. Jay writes in, is there any concern that Jonathan Smith is barely trying to get or target top 500 players? The odds you hit on enough 800 plus ranked kids to be comfortably bowl eligible is low, and that's going to be the majority of the class. I know they're good developers, but that can only go so far. Chief, I'm going to just hog the mic here really quick for a second. I was going to do my monologue and then get your thoughts here. But the short answer is, for this year, I'm not that concerned. And you can probably hear it in my voice that, we're dealing with it right now. This can't be like this forever. I expect 2026 recruiting to be a little better. 2027, it can't be nothing but 3 stars the entire time. But, of course, we just don't do short answers here at Locked On Spartans. So, do I think there are good players in this class? Yes, we talked about the diamonds of the rough. George Mullins, Derek Simmons out of Frankenmuth, I think is going to be a really strong player here. Do I trust this staff to develop? Mostly, yes. They have shown track records of being able to do so. But do I wish recruiting were a little better? Of course. Of course I do. But look, there are 2 things that are working against MSU right now. And there's some irony in this, Chief of Propaganda. As I have so named Chief of Propaganda on, we're actually not going to do propaganda. We're going to give people the hard truth right now. And one of the hard truths right now is that MSU has some work to do right now, nationally, for recruiting. I know me. I know you over there, Brett. I know that we know what Michigan State can be. We've lived through the golden ages. We know that this can be a great program, college football playoff, perennial power. But we are also a decade removed from the golden era. Is that fair to say? I don't mean to throw you, under the bus, Chief of Propaganda, to realize the truth here, but that is one thing working against Michigan State. Is that not? It's hard to say out loud.
No, I think it's more than fair, and I think you can even draw parallels. And listen, for all of the negative of the previous staff, you can see kind of their recruiting strategy shifted from what we're doing with early on. They were targeting kids in the thousands. It was,
yeah, sure.
I don't know if people remember the early days of the Tucker recruiting, even before COVID. They were targeting nobody. So, but I think the way that Jonathan Smith and his staff are kind of approaching recruiting, it's, hey, we need to get a full class in here of 26 kids that are going to stay in the program for 4 to 5 years. And you just need to build some sort of foundation. And you're even seeing it with the 2026, some of the offers that are out there. They're going bigger game hunting. But the fact of the matter is that when you are in your first year and you have less than 12 months really to kind of get commitments and everything. I mean, other staffs have had multiple years to build these relationships, so it's really hard to get inroads there. And Michigan State's never been really a recruiting power for football outside of a couple years here and there. And I think the last staff bit off. I like their approach. They just bit off more than they can chew, and their plan just was not well executed. So, long story short, yeah, I'm not going to really draw too many conclusions from what this 2025 class is. I do think there's some really good football players in here based off of kind of talking to people I trust who have been in the Michigan football high school circuit. They really love the guys we've kind of gotten commitments from and offered. But yeah, ultimately, you're going to need the blue chippers to win big, which is obviously the only thing that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's the first thing right there. It's like there is image damage control that has to be done here. Like, make no mistake about it, this is a rebuild. And I know you can expedite a rebuild, of course, of the transfer portal, and we'll get to that here in a hot second. But look, MSU needs some image remodeling done for a lot of these high school kids, right? And the second thing that also is, maybe speaking to why it's all 3 stars right now is that this staff, by and large, still has to make inroads regionally. All right. And right now, okay, you're stepping in and you're competing for kids. We talked about it ad nauseum last week, that have 2+ year relationships with schools that they've already been talking to before the staff stepped in. So that's where 2026 steps in, right? Like you just talked about it, Chief. Like they've been having kids on for unofficial visits, many of them 4 stars, highly rated 3 stars, but that's going to build the 2-year relationship for the 2026 class. For 2025, they're counting on a lot of, short relationship offers and getting some too. And of course, it's not going to be all regional recruiting. There is always going to be a national flavor here, just like at Michigan State and just like anywhere in the country. See with Leo Hannon, Drew Nichols, 2 California kids. But while we're waiting for the wins to pile up, for the image to get better here at Michigan State, for the regional inroads and relationships being made by Jonathan Smith, yes, this is what this class is going to look like. So that's why I'm not too concerned right now. And I'm not saying that they're punting on this year's class, but it's certainly more of like a who can we realistically get in the circumstances of our situation and our new staff while we wait for relationships to build and the win column still building up. Now, I will also say this. They only had 27 official visitors in the month of June. They kept that list short because you're allotted 70 official visits. That is also counted towards the transfer portal. I think the staff knows they will have to supplement in the transfer portal again this upcoming year, or the upcoming offseason, I should say. So there you have. I think right now it's okay. Let's get the best class we could reasonably get right now. We're going to supplement through top talent in the portal, and then, recruiting is going to get a little better. So that's why right now, I'm not too concerned about, 3-star palooza that we have going on right now. And that's, not to talk down on the class, but there's clearly a concern among some of the fan base with the way things are going. So again, I don't mean to make this sound like, oh, PR propaganda, because I think we just said a lot of things that would go against propaganda in the last few minutes, saying that, yeah, things are kind of tough right now. They have to get better for the recruiting to get better, but that's kind of where things stand right now. Now, if this happens again in 2026 and it's all 3 stars, we're just counting on guys ranked outside the top 800, yeah, I would be a little concerned at that point. But again, it's a lot about relationships and just building those regional inroads. That's kind of where I stand on the whole thing. I'm not concerned. I'm just kind of realizing what the situation is right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And one last thing I want to kind of mention with this is, listen, there's a lot of really, really good football played in the state of Michigan and we are offering the best kids in the state. And one example was last year, there was a running back, Darius Taylor, who played in Walled Lake. And I know I mentioned earlier, I have friends that are really close and connected to the Michigan high school football circuit. And they're like, Michigan State has to offer this kid. Like, he is going to be a legitimate star D1 running back. And our coaching staff, and they went elsewhere. They went big game hunting, and we saw how that turned out. So I think being able to identify the in-state talent you need to land is going to really kind of hedge the gap there as well.
Yep, no doubt about that. We got more mailbag questions to come in a hot second. And I should have said this first. I'm so sorry. I meant to say this off the top, but due to my schedule, this is all on me, hand up. We are recording before the weekend here. So this is before the Darius Afalava commitment, the Houston Torres commit, and the Sherrod Henderson commit. I don't think the wind is blowing in Michigan State's direction. If it's for some reason did, and one of those kids committed to Michigan State, we're going to get to that on the next show. So hand up, that's on me. Should have also said that in the first minute. So if you're wondering where that discussion is, Well, yeah, that's where it is. Sorry about that. All right, more mailbag questions. First, need to talk your people's ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook, the greatest sportsbook in the land. Now, I'm kind of sitting on an egg right now. Again, we're recording before the weekend here, but I have Akshay Bhatia. That's right. I took him at 20-1 to win the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Now, by the time you're listening to this, you either realize that things fell apart and that bet did not hit, or, hey, that's right, we took a little more money out of Mr. FanDuel's wallet. But, hey, nevertheless, win or lose, it is a great time, and it spices up every golf tournament. And they're here to spice up your summer too, guys, because, hey, just like you, I love sports, and I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs winded down, well, now we're getting fewer games, and the sports are not sporting the way we want them to. But FanDuel is keeping me in the game whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And let me tell you, yeah, that's quite often over here around these parts. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. It's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, let's drag him back on here. The one, the only Odell Bretton Jr. here to kick off your week. And again, guys, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Reach out to me, Sheehan_sports on Twitter. I speak in green and white. He had a two-part question. The first we answered before the weekend about red shirts in basketball. The second one is this. Like in the NCAA games, the video game, of course, he's talking about, you have a target wins per year. What is Smith's for this season? What should be Jonathan Smith's target win for this upcoming year? Chief, take it away.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a tough question because the fan in me wants to say, okay, let's go, 17-0 now and go win national championship.
Why not? Yeah, sure. Let's just do it.
But I think realistically, what I would set if I was Jonathan Smith and I'm looking at the roster, I'm looking at the schedule, I'm looking at all the factors playing in. I think 8 wins is a very reasonable outcome to kind of set the goals on. I think you need to get to the point where you're obviously making a bowl. You have to look at you're playing 3 national championship contenders in 4 weeks that are going to be really tough. But outside of that, the schedule is, I want to say, gettable. I think that's a fair way to put it. So I see 7-8 wins that are on that. And listen, if the quarterback you just brought over is as good as everybody thinks he is, you've heard national pundits say they can win 10 games. I'm not going to go there yet, just based off of the trenches not really being something I can comfortably say they're going to keep him afloat for the full year. So I would, if I was setting the meter here, I'd put it at 8.
That's high, but I like it. I mean, again, with the schedule, should this team stay relatively healthy, it's feasible. Like that is a doable number. Now I'm just going to go a few notches below. I'm going to go like 6 wins. I'm going to just go bowl eligibility. I know that might be a little too low for a lot of people out there, but yeah, just get me back to, enjoying a game that our green and white are playing in around Christmas time. I don't care if it's in Fresno, Dallas, Jacksonville. I just play in a bowl game. That's kind of the short expectations I have. Now, Chief, are you ready to get serious? Or are you ready to get down to brass tacks? Enough of the funny stuff so far for this mailbag. This is hard-hitting stuff coming up. Are you prepared?
Absolutely.
I was hoping you'd say that because, well, here it comes anyway. K-Man writes in, serious question, Chief. What are the top 3 things you think MSU should purchase when Amy Fullen, that's the athletic director over at Central Michigan, finally refunds MSU? Feel free to discuss with Sheehan on Lockdown the next time you're on. And that's hilarious because he sent this the day before that you were scheduled to come on. So this is great timing on K-Man's part. This is to the tune of like 1.7 million-ish. I say ish because, well, Chief, I know if I ask you, there should be some interest on top of that. But do you have a list of 3 things MSU should purchase with that money coming back in a big giant check from Mount Pleasant?
Yeah, well, one, we're going to get the money back. That's, to me, that's not negotiable. We're going to get our money back. There will be interest involved. So I'm putting that out there. That to me, that's a prediction, or that's something that's going to happen. So the 3 things that Michigan State should purchase with this money that Central is going to send back in a beautiful gold check is we deserve that Spartan statue that's 150 feet tall. And there is going to be a beautiful plot of land right to the west of the stadium where where I used to put up bricks when I'm playing basketball. We're going to put up that beautiful statue right there. And inside that statue, there's going to be a viewing deck on the top. There's going to be a rooftop bar. There's going to be alumni activities, it's going to be a wonder of the world. And it's going to be something that if you ever attended Central Michigan University, you are barred from ever coming within
Yes.
150 feet of. So there will be no exceptions to that rule whatsoever. The second thing I'm doing is, listen, I'm canceling the games in 2020 in the future. I think it's 2026, 2027. So we need to use that money to bring somebody else in. And who better to bring in than Central Michigan's most hated rival, the Western Michigan Broncos. So I'm gonna send them whatever interest we accrue. That is going to be used to kind of fill in our schedule there. And obviously we have Notre Dame coming up, so it'll be nice to bring in another solid program from the Midwest and replace the dumpster fire that is the Central Michigan Chippewas. And then the third thing I want to purchase with this money, and I think Michigan State fans will rejoice in this, is we need to build Conrads back. We need to bring back the old Conrads that used to stand, and we need to make that its own district. We're going to make it a place where there's going to be bars attached to it. We're just going to create whatever the district Detroit was supposed to be. We're going to create the district East Lansing, and it's going to start with the iconic Conrads building.
That's amazing. Like that is a top-notch top 3 right there. I can't wait for this money to come in. Again, whether it's through wire payment, whether it's through big obnoxious check, I don't care how it is. That's a strong 3 right there. I'm just going to go through my 3 somewhat relatively quickly. I do miss, I shouldn't say miss, I wasn't even alive for this, but like the pictures of the horse and the chariot entrance. Like, don't get me wrong, Sparty playing the flag, that's fun, that's great, woohoo. Maybe it's the Thunderstruck, maybe it's not, whatever. The horse and the chariot is incredible. I imagine that damages some turf. I imagine you have to insure the living hell out of everything going on there. Probably costs upwards of north of $1 million. So I'll just like, at least for one season, maybe 2, bring the horse and chariot entrance back to Spartan Stadium. Number 2, that money is going to go in our NIL pool. And sure, like we're going to get good players, but Chief, specifically from Central Michigan, in the offseason, we will be poaching their top 3 players. We will write them whatever they want within the confines of $1.7 million. But that is my second idea, NIL pool, just to take the top 3 players from Central Michigan. Now, will they be good enough to play for us, start for us? Will they be on the 2 deep? I don't care. They can scan tickets for all I care. As long as we take them away, that's all I need. Now, the third idea I have, this kind of goes along with the Spartan statue idea. But I'm going to take a trip down 75 right now because I'm going to take some inspiration from Toledo. Outside of their stadium, they have a sweet rocket, right? I mean, now whether it's fact, whether it's urban legend, it is well said, often said, that rocket is actually pointed to the direction of Bowling Green's 50-yard line on their field. That is Toledo's top rival. So we're going to modify the Spartan statue a little bit. It's going to be almost like a javelin pose holding a spear. I think that's a weapon they used back in the time of Spartans, whatever. And that spear, the tip of that spear, is going to be pointing toward the athletic department, that's right, of Central Michigan. So nice little Easter egg for you right there. It'll be cool. It'll be like 150 feet tall. You could see it wherever you are on campus. But hey, for the people that know about things, that's right. You could tell your friend that, hey, that spear, that's right. That's going to be javelined right at Mount Pleasant. So that's how I would spend the $1.7 million. Not like stadium upgrades or like a scholarship endowment or anything. Like none of that nonsense. Like something that people care about. No, we're going for gluttony here, Chief. So I think that's at least 3, if not 6, strong ideas there.
I'm fully in love with the idea of the javelin being aimed right at Central Michigan's very tiny athletic department. So we're going to need some of our best scientists there to figure it out, because listen, I'm not trying to be funny here, but their enrollment is down like 10,000 applications. They made it is their revenue last year was $0. So I could put up a lemonade stand and I'm going to be doing a better job. So listen, by the time we build the statue, Central Michigan might not even be there. It just, so we'll see. They have the opportunity here to make things right. And listen, at the end of the day, when they pay us our money, we can keep them on the schedule in the future potentially. We'll see, but I could save them money there. So but I think bringing in their rival and helping them out a bit would be nice. And
sure, charitable, right? Exactly. I think like the reason I'm so like fired up about this is obviously we know the whole Connor Stallion situation. Like he was on the sidelines, whatever. Like, sure, like that's upsetting in its own. Okay, you guys conspired with Michigan. Everyone knows about it, except seemingly you guys. It's the latest piece that came out by Graham Couch. I think it was a month ago when he sat down with Alan Haller, and it was the fact that Alan Haller said that no one from Central has even talked to Alan yet. Not even like behind the scenes, under the table apology or anything. Like it sounds like by all accounts, like they're just dummying up and like they're like seemingly spitting in the face of Alan Haller, Michigan State, and saying like, oh, we don't even owe you an explanation right now while this investigation unfolds. Like that is just like patently crazy to me that not even a nice gesture of sorry about that like has happened. So down with them, I say down with them. I don't think that's too extreme. So yeah, there we go. That's where I'm going to leave that conversation at. Now we're going to head to our Xboxes or PlayStation 5s right now, or whatever gaming console you have, because NCAA Football 2025 is coming down the pike. Now they've released their top 25 offenses, their defenses, their overall teams. Shouldn't really shock any of us. Michigan State right now, as things stand, they're not in any top 25 right now, except, yes, they rank their top 25 toughest places to play. Your Michigan State Spartans, if you haven't seen it right now, they are 22 overall. Chief, is that too high, too low, or just right in the landscape of toughest places to play in college football?
Yeah, I honestly think it's a very fair ranking, and I'll say this: when Michigan State is at its peak, it's one of the toughest places to play in the country. But
Yeah.
when we're at where we were the past few years, teams can roll in here and beat us 49-0. So you got to take the averages.
Yeah. On Dictator Trivia Night, nevertheless, they could do that too. Great times. Yeah, because I'm looking at the other Big Ten schools. I mean, the top one is Ohio State. They're number 4. You got Penn State, number 6. Camp Randall over there in Wisconsin, number 7. And then Autzen Stadium at 11. That kind of rounds out the top 11. Michigan's at 16. Iowa's at 20. That's the thing. It's like I mean, of course I would. I'm very biased, but I would slot us above Michigan. What Michigan State fan wouldn't? Especially when you remember those glory days of like Oregon coming into town. Like that was 4 hours of it being a snake pit at Spartan Stadium. I mean, it is built up. Noise collapses on you. So, yeah, nevertheless, I think it should be more top 20-ish, but I'm not going to, lose any sleep over a number 22 ranking. That's a pretty solid ranking. Now, someone else did have a question as it pertains to NCAA football 2025, specifically our quarterback, Chief. Jack writes in, prediction for Aiden Childs overall in college football 2025. At the time of recording, no one's overall ranking has been dropped officially yet. So we're kind of just going out on a limb here, but you got any number you want to bark out there?
Oh, that's tough. Okay, I'm gonna put him at an 82, and I'll say that just because I forgot who it was. It might have been Andy Staples talking about when he saw some gameplay with Michigan State. He said Aiden Childs was, or whoever said the words said Aiden Childs is a beast in the game. Like he's very hard to defend, and he looked dominant. So I'll put him at 82, 83 range.
And it's so tough for that too, because I thought that teams would be a lot higher ranked. I thought there'd be higher overall rankings, but like for example, like Colorado's number 16 team, I thought the 16 team would still be north of 90. They're at 87 right now. If you don't know anything about video games, all these numbers probably don't make any sense. But nevertheless, I'm going to go with a smooth 88 for Aiden Childs. I think you're going to put him on the upper echelon here. Let's see if that's going to be good to play with. I for one think so, but yeah, 88 I think is where I'm going to go with. That is just throwing a number out into the wind and seeing where it blows. Because again, who knows how these players are ranked or anything like that. This question from Joshua: would you rather have never hired the coach whose name shall not be spoken, meaning 2021 doesn't happen, Walker, Reed, Coleman, none of that happens, or had just hired Jonathan Smith in 2020 with less of a coaching resume than he did coming into this year and seeing what happens? If you can go in the time machine, Chief, what are you doing here?
I'm still doing what we did. I just don't think anybody that came in during that time frame would have been able to find success as quickly as he did in terms of 2021 being kind of one of the more fun years we've had in a while. So, and I even think if we would have brought in Fickle, he would have really struggled for a few years. And I don't know. I'm happy where we're at now. So it's hard to say if. That's a really good question.
life is about the journey, and you know what? The fact that it's part of our journey is going to make the future even more enjoyable. So, hey, you know what? You can't erase the past, even in a hypothetical question like this. And I did have a lot of fun in 2021. You know, whether it was the Michigan game, whether it was the Peach Bowl, we had a hoot and a half. So, as crazy as it ended, as not fun as the last 2 years were, you know what? This is how you enjoy the future, is by looking back at your realistic past. So I'm going to stick with that. Chief, are you ready for a question that is just way above our pay grade right now? This is a whale of a listener question right now. This is going to be, we're both going to be like licensed therapists by the end of this question. If you just want to sit down and get ready for this one, are you ready, Mr. Chief?
I am ready. Let me make sure my coffee is nice and warm here. So yeah, we're
Yep.
good to go.
Okay, this is a long email, but it is like important to just go through it all. You can't edit any part out. This is from Thomas, and the subject line of this email is all caps, help Matt. Okay, like I think, hey, you know what? Maybe he wants a golf bet or something like that. But here we go, Matt. I've been a listener for a few years now and always love your show. Well, thank you very much. Especially the top picks at the end of each show on Fridays during the football season. But I have an issue in life I think only you may be able to help me out with. In 1981, my mother sent me to Florida to spend my senior year in high school to be with my father, and I have lived in Florida for the last 40 plus years, although my heart remains in East Lansing every Saturday. Through the 40 plus years, I've always made my way back home to Michigan once per season for a pair of back-to-back Spartan home games every fall. My issue is, when I was an immature 29-year-old, my wife was 8 months pregnant, and for some reason I snuck up to East Lansing for one last home game for a quick 2-night out-of-town trip, figuring it would be my last opportunity for years to come. As you probably figured, my daughter was born on the day I was returning home, as my wife gave birth almost a month early, and I've never been able to forgive myself since, in parentheses, as I shouldn't. As a 60-year-old, I've never been able to look her in the eye and tell her, although I'm sure she knows, I still cannot get myself to say this. She knows I bleed green and white, but it does not excuse this. Maybe you can advise me on this dilemma and how I should look her in the eyes and tell her. Maybe a mention of this from you, and I will have an excuse to ask her to listen to this particular episode. I did email him back one important question. I did ask, did your wife know you're going up to East Lansing for this, or did you tell her it was like some work trip, or did you completely just ghost her? The wife was made fully aware of this trip, so he wasn't pulling a fast one completely. So he wants advice. Now, however, I don't know what the advice is. Is it that he wants to be rid of the guilt that happened 29 or whatever amount of years ago, 3 decades ago? Does he need advice on telling his daughter why exactly all this happened? Or does he need advice, sharing this guilt with his wife? Why not hit all three of them? Chief, I don't know if this is what you prepared for when you agreed to come on this show today, but we are getting some billable therapy hours right now because this is a big question. I got to say, I'm going to take this one by one. I think just if it's a guilt thing, if it's he wants advice being rid of his guilt, I think the fact that you're 60 years old, you've sat in this for 3 decades, and it is clearly in this email that you still feel horrible about this situation. A very unfortunate situation, might I add, like giving birth a month before the due date like that. Who can foresee that happening? That is what they call a bummer in the medical industry. The fact that you've held on to guilt for that long, I think, speaks a lot to, it's genuine that you feel bad about this. Now, explaining to your daughter, if she doesn't know already by now, I would just say it as it is right now. And also, I think it's very clear that you would feel bad about it. And then, if it is about, hey, it's apologizing to your wife or something like that, again, I think it speaks clearly that, you do feel horrible about this. That's all you can do right now. You can't redo the past 30 years ago. But yeah, I think it goes a long way just feeling that bad. And I hope everyone is aware that, that is an unfortunate circumstance. Hopefully that word soup I just belched out made somewhat of sense, Chief. What a complex issue here. You got anything over at Dr. Chief's office over there?
Yeah, this guy's totally in the right for what he did.
Let's go. Okay.
But I mean, heading up to East Lansing as an alumni is a beautiful experience. You go up to the campus.
A pilgrimage. That's right. Yes.
It is. It's a pilgrimage. Like
yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So no, and listen, you can't foresee a child being born a month early.
It's tough. And believe me, I've had, been lucky enough to have 2 children, and the weeks creeping up to Gametime, or the months creeping up, it's you almost start to get a panic that oh God, life is about to shift drastically here. I better get all the shenanigans out of my way right now. And that's what he was trying to do a month ahead of time. I mean, I'm not here to say, like, whether that was right to go on the trip or not. It depends who you talk to. Like, there's a lot of gray area there. I, for one, don't even know if that's, like, in bounds, but nevertheless, it happened. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I think just even still feeling this bad about it 30 years later. I mean, it's not like you're some scumbag and a week later said, well, your fault. You did it. I did nothing wrong. Like, just the fact that you feel some sort of guilt, I think, speaks to, how much of, like, a family person you are. Like, I could be reading the situation completely wrong. I don't think I am, but yeah, I think, just the fact that you have those emotions still with you, Thomas, really says that, yes, even though you went to East Lansing that one very uneventful weekend, by and large, you still love your family even more than Michigan State.
Right. And I think I think it's also interesting. It would be interesting to find out, like, did the child eventually go to Michigan State? Like, did the Spartan family continue? So, if she did, she would love, or they would love this story of, hey, my child went to Michigan State, and maybe that spurred it. The universe kind of smiled down upon the family and gave them a Spartan child. So you could look at it that way. Like, this was a sacrifice you had to make to ensure the lineage was going to be Spartans.
Now, I will say this is the most important part. What was the first game after the birth? He did include this. I'm proud to say my daughter was born, and our Spartans welcomed her with a 29-10 win over Wisconsin 5 days later. So bada boom, bada bang. That's what I'm talking about. That is much different than my two kids. My oldest first game was the Rutgers game in the COVID year where we had 6 turnovers. And then last year, my other kid's first game was the Maryland game when basically it was 21-0. Well, the tailgates were still going on. But yeah, so good to start her life with a nice little win there. And always great to chat with you, Chief. What a journey we have taken. We've talked about the state of recruiting. We talked about getting that money back from Central. And then, well, we are now licensed family therapists. So, like, we have done it, Chief. We have done it.
Yeah, we kind of touched on everything. It's yeah.
Don't tell us we're not versatile and well-rounded. Never accuse us of that. You can accuse us of a lot of things. We got some shenanigans on Twitter. Way too immature for the age that we are. But if not for nothing else, we're well-rounded here, Chief. I like to think that.
We're well-rounded, and listen, this is one thing. We're gonna have fun. Like, listen,
yeah,
the past year of Spartan athletics, it kicked the life out of us. But listen, we're back. We're stronger, and we're ready to take on this new decade and kind of return things to where they should be. So I think Spartan fans can be very excited about what is coming, what is to come, and the people in charge who are going to ensure that this success is something that is going to last for generations.
That is what I'm talking about. What a way to cap it off here. And speaking of, hey, things to look forward to, we got Steven Izzo coming up later this week. Full chat with him. Coming up, Al Carson's going to join the show in a hot segment. We're still working on Heath Baldwin, just a Spartan that qualified for the freaking Olympics in the decathlon. But hey, until we get to all that, enjoy your week. Love you all. Go Green.
Go White.